I'm a Dakyapi. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. This is KILI Radio, Voice of the Lakota Nation. I'm here at my house. We're doing this recording, pre-recorded, and I have a very special guest with me, Mark Tilsen.
Hello.
Mark is I don't even know how to put this into words, but Mark's character is, he can be labeled a protester, water defender, he's just, and I think Ikje Wichasha, okay? I think a common man. I think you are a common man. And so now that I'm done blowing kisses at Mark, thank you for coming tonight, man.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Good to be here.
Can you pull that Mark a little bit closer to you?
Yeah. I describe myself as a poet and an educator, because I don't know, it just feels more honest. The term activist comes with a lot of baggage, and then there's a rhetoric and counter rhetoric saying we're not actually protesters, we're protectors, and it's like, are we really protecting, or are we just attempting to protect?
You know, Mark, I kind of wanted to talk to you about this. Okay. So, one time, I was, I would say about maybe 15 years ago, I was at Porcupine store, and I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, a cousin of mine, and we were just shooting the breeze, and then all of a sudden, the Black Hills came up. And I don't know if you've ever been in Porcupine store, but they have a couple chairs in the back. And, I had a few uncles back there, and there was this one elder who I really respected. And I was talking about gold mining in the Black Hills, or uranium. It was during that whole Elderbridge stuff. Well, that's still going on too, by the way.
Yes.
But anyway, so I was talking about we need to save the Black Hills. And then he walks up to me and he goes, "You think the Black Hills need your saving?" And I was just like, well, I thought I did. You know what I mean? It's like the audacity that you think that you can change that.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't being mean to me.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't trying to be mean to me or demoralize me, but he was trying to get me to think, like, that's always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things that was just like, well, it kind of got me thinking.
It sounds a little bit like cowboy wisdom.
Oh, it's totally cowboy wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, but in what shape or form?
Exactly.
I remember there's this really good webcomic. I'm into memes. I kind of exist in that meme world. And one of the webcomics that's kind of a meme came out, and it was a person who was hugging Mother Earth and saying, "I'm sorry for all the things that we've done to you." And she says, "It's okay. It's going to be okay." And the guy was confused, and he says, "What I mean by that is you humans think that you can hurt me.
Yeah.
But you can't.
Yeah.
You can only hurt your chances of survival here." And the character was like, "What?" It says, "You're screwing yourself over big time, and you will not be missed."
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, because in the course of in the billion-year history of this planet, we're an eye blink.
Blink.
Right. And Lakota, we say, since time immemorial, is like, well, yes, and if we only count human time, and then you kind of have to get into like either geological structures, evolution, or like the metaphysics and spirituality of understanding a time, which I don't have time to do.
First of all, that's too deep.
I agree.
We're not going into that. But what I was getting at was that, it's what you said. Yeah, there's that understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the thing where I look at our next generation. I want them to be able to swim in them lakes.
Right, exactly.
I want them to be able to cruise through there without having to run into a fence that says, "Don't go near here. There's uranium." You know what I mean? It's atomic. You can't go that way.
Also, there already is radioactive contamination in Angostura.
Right. There is.
And that's not part of. That's usually not part of people's like conscious knowledge. Like I remember like knowing that, but then swimming there for years after, literal years.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like slowly connecting the dots of like radioactive isotopes, swimming hole, radioactive. It's like
all right.
Lisa needs braces. Dental plan. Lisa needs braces.
The funny thing is that we do these things. Like I go in the hills all the time, and that's like one of my favorite things that me and my family do. And the thing is that we go up there and there's water running, and I play in the water.
Yeah.
Even though I know that it like, so this is what I learned. One time we were doing some water testing all over the res, and then we did the Black Hills, and they found traces of E. coli in every single body of water in the Black Hills. You know where it was the cleanest? Porcupine Creek.
Wow.
Porcupine Creek, Manderson, White Clay was pristine water.
For E. coli and other bacteria.
There was there was like, you know what I mean? It was more prominent. And I mean, obviously you'll find traces of E. coli and stuff like the cows crap in that,
right,
in that water. But what I'm saying is that the Black Hills, it's all rock, man. Like all those houses that people are putting up all over the place, they got to have plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And last I checked, plumbing does not work in rock.
And poop goes downhill.
That's why there's E. coli in all our water bodies. Like if you're jumping in the water anywhere in the Black Hills,
mm-hmm,
and you get any of that in your mouth, chances are
you're digesting some rich people's poop.
Probably, yeah. Because if you go up to Harney Peak, my bad, Black Hills Peak. So up there's a great big, what are those ponds called? You know what I'm talking about, for waste. There's one right up there on top of the mountain.
Yeah, who's pooping on Harney Peak?
Come on, man. That's like the dumbest place to put something like that.
Yeah, you'd want to put that a little bit lower down the hill.
Anyway, but you're here tonight. Thank you for coming, man.
Yeah, it's an honor.
So what's this whole eviction? Is that you?
It's all of us.
Okay. All right.
I'm the one who wrote this first draft, let's say, this evolving document. And very simply, it's an eviction notice to KXL and to DAPL, basically saying get off Lakota lands and using our treaty rights, and particularly the bad man clause of the 1868 treaty, and and also noting their personhood as a modern American corporation.
So how long did it take you to put that together?
I'm
curious how long it took you to like process that and then have the gumption to put it together.
The writing of it was about like, you can like, if somebody has gone through and edited it, and so it took 20 minutes, the writing of it, and it took days of contemplation and like a week of procrastination. Yeah. That
procrastination period is one of those harmful things, man.
This one, it was like stewing in like.
Yeah.
Like the reason why is like, in my mind, to do this properly, you would like, as Lakota people, we try to create consensus, and then simply like, because of COVID, we can't even all get in the same room.
Yeah.
And like, do I really want to sit down with all of our elders, all the headsmen, all of our treaty councils, our tribal governments, our young people, like we're not that, like, this is a very particular type of organizing or a tool to assert our rights that could only really exist in this particular time and space.
Just from your perspective, how does it feel that's been accepted? The document.
Right now we have just under 200 signatories.
Yeah.
That are from Ocheti Shakoi. There's another one that's a list of like supporters and allies, and some people are overjoyed with it, and some people are like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to sign or repost it or share it. And because, yeah.
Mark, if you're Oglala, why not sign it?
People have their own opinions. Like, people have people have their own opinions. Some of it's about the language. Some of it is like, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I've only seen one person even online saying like, "Oh, you don't have the right to say this," and that was a very particular, interesting young man. It was on an Indian Collective post, and they were saying that only a treaty Indian who is part of the Sioux Treaty or the Sioux Nation of Indians can evict anybody. And my whole thing is like, cool. And they also said being part of an IRA government tribe, having tribal membership or enrollment, negates you from being able to evict anybody or use the treaties.
Okay.
I just says, okay, go do it then.
Exactly.
If you are that person who says, I actually am the only person who has the right to do this, and cool, go do it. We also have somebody who is one of the people who speaks, spends a lot of time working on the treaty on that level, and has created a passport and their own identification. It's Manape.
Oh, okay.
And he signed on to it. Has a signatory with his titles, according to the Sioux Nation of Indians. But my whole thing is everybody should.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe that the treaties are for a certain people to enforce. We know as a matter of course, in a matter of history,
right,
that our tribal governments have used the treaties to do anything from creating the Miniwachoni water project, which gives us, our utilizes treaty rights to pump water, our drinking water, from the Missouri River all the way to Pine Ridge.
Right.
And that was a tribe using the treaties to get that done.
Right.
I thought it was kind of brilliant.
I mean, there's lots of stuff that we could be associating with the treaty, like hunting and fishing rights.
Right. I mean, I like Kangi Trokas, but up in Montana, like it was not a treaty government or a tribal government that made this stand. It was a guy hunting elk who just went out and did it.
Yep.
And so, I heard this phrase a lot, and then sometimes you got to smile when you see it, but it's like, if you want to be sovereign, act sovereign.
Right, exactly. That's one of the things that I keep thinking about is like, yeah, we could continue to just like go on our merry way and not worry about any of this, but like at any moment, those rights could be dissipated into all this stuff that legally or whatever it is, they can go through the court systems or whatever, and like they could just make it all disappear because they've done that in the past.
Yeah,
like this. I mean, like sort of like going down and just going up and like whenever Lexi Russell Means did this, I think he went up to. I think he planned on taking an animal in the up in the hills, but he ended up having to just go fishing, and but that's still, I mean, one of those things. And there's been people that have done it here in Custer, and the judge had to like go, there's a written document here, I can't do anything to this man. He just let it go. But the one in Montana, that was the only one that ever went to court.
Yeah.
And that one, the fact that that stood, a document, our document stood. It's
ours.
What do you mean? I mean, I'm just associating with the agreement, like it's an understanding.
Yeah, between the U.S. government and an indigenous tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
And it had to be a Crow guy.
I mean, yeah, it just had to be, apparently.
I mean, it was just cool to see.
No, definitely. And I think right now we're in a moment. Like that's one of the things about timing is this is a time for us to assert our rights.
Absolutely.
Is like we have this historic moment coming off of the win in Oklahoma. where the judge ruled, not the judge, but the United States Supreme Court ruled that Oklahoma has zero right to seize and annex Indian land.
Right.
So therefore, all of the land that they took is still technically under the jurisdiction of the tribal nations. For us in the Black Hills, it's a little bit different.
We already won the case.
What does that mean? We already won the case. Like we're in this weird I was visiting with an attorney about this, and he says this is the only time where I think the thief gets to dictate how much they stole and what it's worth.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, that is nuts.
It's like, what is it right now? 1.3 billion or something like that?
And I mean, I've been quoting 7 billion, like the amount of the accumulated assets that have been stolen and raised from the Black Hills is closer to 7 billion. But that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much has actually been stolen out of the Black Hills, which since we are talking about property and this is 2020, how much has been stolen from the Ocheti Shakoi?
Exactly.
And it's got to be more than 1.3 billion.
Oh yeah, way more.
Yeah.
Well, more than that. But what I'm saying is like the actual amount and then the what do you call it, the interest of it. But like anyway, the thing is like, where does the Black Hills end and start too? Where does Chasapa begin and start? Because like, are we counting Rapid City? Because that's technically in the hill, Sturgis.
Like one of the critiques I've had about this eviction notice was that we should have invoked the 1851 treaty next to the 1868, and the 1851 just has more land base.
Yeah.
The only reason why I didn't is to be a little bit more succinct, and because the bad man clause is in the 68.
Right.
And one of the things is like we actually won a war with the U.S. government, and that was the peace treaty. 1851 isn't a peace treaty; it's a right of way.
It's like an agreement.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we're gonna let you through here without killing all of you.
Yeah, and that's basically what it was.
Yeah.
They think it's a war won. It wasn't a war won.
No, it was like, we're going to let you by.
It's an agreement is what it was. That's why there's so much land base in the 1851. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, the 1868 treaty is more compact with signatures and like understanding, and it's quite long. And what's
only 3 pages.
Well, what I'm saying is like compared to other treaties.
Yeah.
This is quite long.
Yes.
The other thing about it is that this treaty is also quite like our relatives, our ancestors. That was pretty good thinking. Can you imagine being able to sit here now and predict 7 generations in the future? I couldn't even think to know what they need in 7 generations.
I plan about 7 days out.
7 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know. But so far, the eviction notice, has anybody on the opposition end taken notice to it at all? Like, has TC Canada, like, oh.
Not to me personally. I think that there's been disagreements on this on, I think it was ETP, Dapple's Facebook page is the closest that I've gotten to anybody feedback or anybody pushing the issue, and I'm fine by that. Like, I'm obviously not doing this in secret, and I don't think it should be done, and I kind of want to like be able to relinquish as much ownership of it as possible, so that literally if you're part of the Ocheti Shakoi, you should feel empowered. Like, if let's say this eviction, the words and the spirit of it doesn't affect you, you have the right to gather your own people and to create your own.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things why, like, even in the document itself, this is an evolving document of the Ocheti Shakoi. And the idea is that, like, I don't pretend that I got it perfect in 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, it's going to change over time.
Absolutely. I don't like the fact that there are entities out there that lay claim that they have a better way. And then it's like, okay, well, initiate it then.
Yeah.
That's the thing about being idle. I do not like that. Like, get it done.
Yeah. You are idle no more?
Oh, yeah. Some of them have gotten bougie. They've been whiteified. You know what I mean? They got into a position where like some Karens got a hold of it, and then they totally jacked the thought of it, and it was like, because Idle No More was pretty cool. It still is cool. I should say that.
Like, I think we have to say that with Idle No More, what I really saw was a wake up. People all across, it started in Canada. People all across Canada was people reasserting their rights.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was, guys, it wasn't that long ago where the Mohawks started a blockade in solidarity for Unistoten and the Wet'suwet'en people. And those blockades spread all across Canada in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And threatened to shut down the government. Like, we're in a moment of rebellion and insurrection. And like, you know, as much as, you know, everything's really changed and become amplified and way more intense after the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis by the police and all of the Black Lives Matter and this rebellion that spread out through the entire country. But there was a rebellion going on in Canada. There was a rebellion going on in Hong Kong, in Chile, Bolivia. Bolivia's in like so. Whenever we're talking about, there's this continuous contact, like a conflict that we're in context of. Like, it's not as if this is a singularity that's not a product of its time.
Right. I think it was one of those things that, like, the Black Lives Matter movement, like, just caused an uprising, and then I think what happened is that they realized that per capita, more Indians were being killed by cops than black people.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, well, this needs to include people of color. That means Native Americans, indigenous peoples. We're just going to let this thing ride. So then the whole, like, Redskins things happen. That was, I didn't think that was going to happen, to be honest. That, like the Cleveland Indians, you know, I can't remember those other teams right now, but, like, you know, it hit me. It was like, that's not going to change. I remember actually saying that to a kid. They're like, that's not going to change in our life. It's football.
Oh, you were the old timer. You're never going to change.
That's never going to change. The NFL is sacred for Sundays. That's totally me. That was terrible. And I'm not afraid to admit that I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was wrong.
You know, I'm glad too. I think, you know, a while, not even that long, I think it was like a week ago, I said that, you know, I'm glad it changed, but it's not even the top 100 things I care about.
I know. I asked one of my friends on the radio the other day, I was like, so how do you feel about that? He's like, we got people dying of heart disease and diabetes, you know, like...
Like, can we take care of housing? Just housing. Just like one thing.
Right.
One thing.
It's like we have a meth issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad it went away, but it's not on my to-do list today here in Pine Ridge.
Right. No, that's exactly how I feel. And on the other side of the coin is that there's people who've been on the front line of this culture war. And Jesus Christ, I remember marching against this shit when I was a kid, and they had the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. And it was the Washington Redskins. And at the time, Redskins fans would wear pig noses.
Oh, I know. I remember those.
I have no idea what that was about. Why? Okay.
Yep. Didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Is this a kid?
Yeah.
Didn't know any of this.
Yeah, and then, like, you know, so it's basically taken an entire generation. More. There's been people who've been fighting against this probably for even longer than that.
You know, I grew up with my family watching football, and my family, their teams are the Cowboys and the Redskins and the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And I had no problem with that. I had no idea that Redskins was a derogatory. Took me forever to figure that out.
It's actually even worse than a derogatory. That's one of the things is, like, it's not really even a racial epitaph. Like, very few people get called Redskins. We get called a lot of other really ugly shit, but no one really trots that out. What it is it's a historic celebration of our murder and genocide. The bounty for killing Indians, those were the Redskins.
It's crazy too, because, like, it's equivalent to the N-word.
Again, I just have to disagree with you. It's almost like an N word is to dehumanize somebody, of course, make them feel lesser, and it's part of the colloquialisms that's going on. It's part of the language.
Yeah.
Redskin is part of genocide. It's not to keep us in a it's part of being invisible. There's a difference between racism and genocide. Racism is usually attached historically to labor, saying we need you, but we need you to be in a dehumanized position within our society. Genocide states we need you to die and never exist.
And so you're saying that's kind of where the Redskins word is at.
Yes.
Man. It's see, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We could say it and not have a problem with it.
Yeah.
That's how deep that shit goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you know how like black people are some are afraid to say the N-word, some say it with pride. Us guys, we say it without clue.
Right. Yeah. It's not part. I don't know. Like, I know plenty of people who call each other skins, but I don't know if like somebody says like redskin.
Even the word Indian.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no offense to anybody that uses it, but I mean, like, I call people Indians all the time.
Yeah, but yeah, and I
it's not correct.
No, and like this was actually part of the language. Like, if you look at the treaty, it doesn't say Great Sioux Nation. It doesn't say Ocheti Shakoe. What it says is Sioux Nation of Indians.
Yeah,
and sometimes I just gotta, whenever we're talking, like that's what I consider to be like politically correct language.
Yeah,
is like, so somebody else already did this way more articulately than I can, but like the transition from being savage to Indian to Native American, or to American Indian to being Native American to being Native, and now we say indigenous.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, we're Lakota.
Yeah,
that's where I feel the best, and it's saying that like, yeah, a lot of us have incredible like shared experiences, and there is a little bit of that pan-Indianism going on that's just saying our experiences are similar. But I like being Lakota. I like that's my language, my people, my history, and if you're gonna call me anything, call me that.
You know, I remember whenever that post you tagged me in, where you talked about giving popcorn up in Keystone during the protest up there that got hit pretty good, did it?
I wasn't really paying attention.
So I was looking at it, and then here, I think it was your sister that came up to me like, was that your first protest? I was like, no, that was not my first protest. And I was like, I wasn't going to correct Mark up there. The whole purpose of the story was to him to tell me about getting sustenance while you're out in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the craziest thing. But I was just thinking about, we've come a long way. I remember sitting in your brother's house talking to you the night before we headed out to Standing Rock in the early stages of that. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Wow. That was only 4 years ago.
That's crazy.
It feels like a lifetime, though,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that. It does feel like a lifetime ago because so much has happened since then. And it's crazy, too, because, like, can you go 5 years back and then look at yourself and think that you would be here in this position where you're at? Because from my recollection, Mark, the way you were talking back then, you were just kind of in this area where it was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And all of a sudden, like, would you feel like that Standing Rock was your calling?
Yeah. Yes, I do, Arlo. No, not to be cheesy about it. I'm trying not to be cheesy, but no, definitely. I mean, Standing Rock, I wanted to be there, and I wanted people to do stuff that made sense. That I wanted us to work together. I wanted us to be tactical, strategic, strong, and somehow be respectful enough of the locals. And sometimes on a good day, we did. And I really don't think I had an accurate picture of what was going on until like November or December. And like that just kept on not happening. Like we didn't end up really ever working together. And it, like most of the time, like we hopefully we could get out of each other's way. Like simply like, oh, they're doing ceremony over here, don't interfere with the ceremony. There's an action going on there, go over, support it as much you can. And yeah, and then like
I remember going up and everybody was unified. And I like how Dave Archambault says it best. He said, in the beginning, it was beautiful. It was united. It was the essence of a village. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah.
But and then he said, then money got involved. And then everything just kind of went in its own direction.
I stayed pretty far away from money. So I think that he saw that more on his end because he was involved. Like, by nature, being head of the tribe, you're the tribal host. I think that, like, I think I raised $2,000 on a GoFundMe, and then it got shut down. And so it's like, yeah, I quit doing that. And then I just walked away. I just walked away from that online fundraising world, and that was better. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like I don't think it was the money, though. I don't. Well, again, from my perspective, Dave's gonna have an entirely different. Like, I'm hanging out in one little dome tent, like across from Crazy Horse Lane and all the Oglalas, and he's up top dealing with everybody at tribal council and the casino
on
and
a
all of
leadership
that.
level.
Yeah, and then probably seeing all the other people start raising money. One of the things is that, like, I think it's one of the things that I don't know if you say ruined it, but like definitely left things soured, is how controlled some people wanted this to be instead of letting it live as a movement. I think there's like strategic and tactical teachings we can take from Standing Rock, and dare I say spiritual as well. And I don't mean like one Hochoka's spiritual teachings that they've given. I think like the essence of what it was. And it was, if we come together to fight for a good cause, and if we keep fighting in the best possible way, good things will happen. And I left Standing Rock heartbroken. Truly, truly heartbroken.
Oh, man, I imagine you would be. Talk about that.
It was so bad, guys.
It was so bad.
No, like...
Do you need more coffee?
Oh, I'd love some more.
All right. Anyway, keep talking.
Yeah, and, you know, we went up there, and imagine really being home, but for the first time.
What do you mean by that?
We got to live for a brief period of time. We got to live our best lives. And we didn't have to worry about the soul crushingness of capitalism. Like, enough people supported what we were doing that, thank you, that we didn't have, we weren't running out there on the weekends or after the 5 o'clock shift ended. Some people did. For those of us who had that rare privilege of being able to live in camp and just to live, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, what I say is, like, I have a poem there, because I'm a poet, called Camp Life. It's not that we were free, not really, but on a clear day, we could see what freedom looked like.
That's dope. That's nice. Give me chills. I like that one.
No, but that's
that's
Standing Rock.
Yeah,
That Standing Rock in essence is like, we weren't free, but we could see it.
Right.
We could feel it. Sometimes we could taste it. And like the whole nother world is possible right there.
Yeah. Man, it was quite the experience for sure. I just remember leaving. All right, so whenever we first went up, I mean, this was way before a lot of that, like before there was even camps anywhere. I just remember getting up there, and I was at the very first action where just I think Dave was arrested, and then the next one, and then the next morning, and I took photos and I shared all those photos. But I remember all of a sudden I saw you on the front line, and we had just talked the night before. It seemed like, and it was like you were like, man, I don't know if I can. If I'm going to teach school this year, I have to have this stuff in tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I really want to go to Standing Rock.
Yeah.
You were at a crossroads is really what you were. You were at a position where, like, if you were going to continue what you're going to do that year, you had to stay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to go to Standing Rock, give up everything literally. And we didn't even know how big it was going to be. At that time, it just seemed like one of those things.
Yeah.
And then the next time I saw you, I remember walking in. It's almost like, I mean, this sounds horrible, but it's almost like watching you grow up in ranks.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's no ranks. I know there's no ranks.
No
I know
hierarchy.
that. There's no hierarchy. I understand that. But to watch you grow just in there was really inspiring to see. Just to see, because that one I really like was I came back with my son. I think it was Thanksgiving Eve,
Oh yeah.
and you were at a table, and there were all these people around you, and you guys had flashlights on maps, and you guys were like organizing right there, and it was like midnight. I'm like, you guys, we gotta sleep.
You don't. Like, no, that's one of the things that Standing Rock taught me is that you can operate off of 3 to 4 hours of sleep for weeks on end, sometimes even months. But your body and your mind will collapse, and it will collapse hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't actually need sleep. Sleep is sometimes a privilege, a luxury, and not a necessity.
It is so a necessity, Mark. It is extremely a necessity. So
I mean, when you're in it, like you know, like when you're really in it, like you can push your you can ask your body and your mind to do things that
Yeah.
it normally wouldn't. I think anybody who's been part of our grown up in the way is going through the ceremonies know that there's physical reserves and spiritual reserves that can be tapped into.
oh yeah,
That feel almost extra human. And when you're in the middle of a historic fight like that, it's like no, we are gonna sleep.
Yeah.
We're just gonna sleep between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5.
yeah. I started doing that recently, the past year. After I gave up the whole 9 to 5, I remember it being like Monday, the week after I resigned from my job, and I had stayed up all night writing, and I just remembered getting up and I was thinking, making coffee, gotta do this, and I was like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
And it was such a relief. Like I took a nap today from 3 to 5, and I was just I went off grid basically, and it felt so good. And in a way, I see that as a form of I'm trying to live differently, not conventionally.
Yeah.
And so my kids don't even know what that's like either. So because I think we were up till 2 a.m. But that's whenever me and Louie were doing videos last night till midnight, and we're putting these videos together. That's not the typical time I don't know what's conventional or typical, but I just understand that we were enjoying ourselves, and that's been the whole thing. I don't, with the whole Standing Rock movement, I just realized that while I was up there, it was an opportunity to get an understanding of what it was like to be a village. You do things when you want.
Yeah, and also, or when they need to get done.
When they need to get done.
And the thing about it is like a simple chore, oh, we're gonna go get wood. It's not like we're gonna go get wood. It's like, hey man, we're loading up, we're doing this. Come on down, we'll knock it out.
Or we're gonna plan for wood getting for the next 3 days.
Yeah,
it's not like that. It's not like that at all. It's not it's not like somebody's keeping an eye on reserves, and then you have to take an account for that. But then all of a sudden, a force comes upon you. And they're okay, then we have to deal with that.
Yeah.
It was a better, simpler way of life.
Yeah, and it was, it was really difficult. But I've never felt more purpose, and I think that one of the things is that the only time I've really felt something quite similar to Standing Rock was out at Mount Rushmore on the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
And that felt like a spiritually healing thing for me to be part of.
Right.
And
as being a Lakota person, that felt good.
Yeah.
And I gotta go throw this out there. The most organized action ever. I've seen quite a few, and I know you've seen quite a few, but it's up there, right, Mark? That action on Mount Rushmore, July 3rd, was up there as far as organization, right?
I would say there is something even better going on than organization, because organization kind of denotes planning, kind of denotes like, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this. And I didn't like, it felt more like everyone stepped into the role it found roles and stepped into them in a correct way, which for me is even more impressive than being organized. Like, I think when I've seen things that have been really organized, it's been like a very tense, hard thing where like we're doing this now and that now, and we're on this schedule.
Oh, I know.
You're out of your place. You're out of your zone.
Right.
That's your That's your station. And instead, it was like surfing. It was like riding a wave. And it was just like, no. It's like, all right, we're in this now. We're going to hit a lull. But right now, this is the intense part. This is the scary part.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Is everybody still here? Okay. That night, I was terrified. Before that,
Right.
before going up there, I imagined being 300 Oglalas with mostly young people, elders,
Allies.
yeah, allies. And it's also, if you ever go in and you're going to stand in front of a riot line with some brand new people, you're like, I don't know how you're going to act.
Right.
I know how I've acted in the past.
Right.
And let's see how we're going to act today. So It's this very scary thing. But I thought we had been pelted. Like, I imagined being like shot or stabbed or pelted with beer bottles and being surrounded by thousands of angry Trumpers. And the tactical choices that were made were brilliant. And almost none of that happened.
Almost none of that. Yeah.
And like when we're talking about injuries, other than the police, we're talking about a handful of, literally almost even less than a handful of people who had to, or didn't have to, but were harassed and attacked by Trump supporters. And it was very, very few. And looking back, we could have even done that better. That's what I would think. In my mind, I always go through the checklist of what could have happened, how this happened, and what to do better next time.
Yeah.
Not just to criticize or self-critique, but like, hey, this is the things that we have to think about ahead of time.
Doc Appy, you're listening to KILI Radio 90.1 FM, 88.7 FM Rapid City, on the line at KeelyRadio.org. We have a podcast. Go check it out. Subscribe. You can find us anywhere from iTunes to Amazon to Google Play. We're everywhere. Spotify. Go check it out. I'm here today with Mark Tilsen, and he's talking about the different actions that we witnessed on July 3rd up in Keystone for the 45's visit for the fireworks, and then his visit in Standing Rock. So anyway, Mark, what I wanted to ask you too, I want to go back here. I know we kind of jumped forward there, but after Standing Rock, after the everything, the people living there dissipated, what did you do? And like, what happened next? I really want to know this part.
A little bit like wandered the earth.
I was curious because your purpose, your drive, the force was not there anymore. And you were just kind of like, okay, what's next? And I was really curious because there's a lot of people like yourself were there and they stayed all the way to the end. And then all of a sudden it just went away. Agreements were made, understandings were established, and it was like, okay, well, we're going to end this today. And it just ended. And then like, I just thought about all those people that fought so hard. What happens to them next?
I ended up living with a handful of friends in Los Angeles for a few months. Then I moved to Seattle and then kind of drifted.
Because you ended up at Florida.
Yeah, I was in Florida for a little bit.
And what happened? You just
keep on keeping on, man.
Yeah.
One of the things is like, I've been across the entire country. I focused on teaching direct action, teaching things from Standing Rock. And I've also, at the time, people were like, oh, come to the Wolf's Den in Flint, Michigan. I was like, was anybody from Flint asking us to come? They're like, no. It's like, where are you guys living? I was like, we're living in the park. It's like, isn't everybody else like living in a house around the park?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but we're camped out here. It's like, okay, that doesn't feel solid. Yeah, I ended up fighting Dapple, ETP down in Louisiana.
Oh, that's what it
And
was.
yeah,
The Bayou.
down in the Bayou Bridge at the fighting at the Bayou Bridge pipeline fight with Louis La Vie, and it was kind of night and day. Like I remember, like, you know, at Standing Rocks, like, we're standing on our treaties, we're grounded in the spirituality of our ancestors, and at Bayou Bridge, it was like, "F you, we are here for revenge."
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So anger.
Yeah, and at the camp, I'd never laughed so hard in my entire life. Like, I think that like if you like Standing Rock, you're gonna remember the intensity, the intense pain of the police. You're gonna remember the songs, and you're gonna have like your clothes soaked in camp smoke.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, and at Bayou Bridge, you're gonna laugh harder than you've ever laughed before. You're gonna eat some of the most incredible food, and you're gonna remember the stink of the mud and so many bug bites from the top of your toes to your ears.
I remember you said once that the wind in Standing Rock is insane.
Yeah, I leveled camp 3 or 4 times.
I was gonna say, what's more testing with you, Mark? The snow and the horizontal wind, or the bug bites in the bayou?
Bayou Bridge, hands down.
Hands down.
I would have done 5 Standing Rocks. I left Standing Rock wanting more, and after Bayou Bridge is like, can we not do this? Is there anywhere else?
You need those Creole Indians to get in there.
Yeah, like Homer Nation, like whenever y'all ready. Yeah, it was 105 degree in the shade with 100% humidity, but then you learn to tell, like, you know, they had 5 different species of mosquitoes, and each generation, each hatch of the mosquitoes, they'd come back stronger and smarter, more agile, because the dumb ones all been killed off.
Wow, they actually give them personalities.
Yeah, you notice, like, yeah, and you can see them, like, that's one of those tiger striped guys. Those ones hurt a lot. And you get, like, if you were to wave your, like, just wave your hand in front of your face at night, you'd come away with 30 to 40 mosquitoes just on your hand.
Yeah.
And I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, I've been in the interior of Alaska. I've been through, boundary waters in Minnesota. Nothing, absolutely nothing like Louisiana.
So whenever the action happened up at Keystone, you said, I was scared to death that night. Mm-hmm. What night are you talking about?
Oh, the night before.
Were you? Oh, I know. Wasn't it like one of those? Because I looked at so many reports of, was it Black Water or whatever that team is called? They come with assault rifles and they like position themselves
out.
And
there's people who are saying on Facebook, like, if these protesters come to our town, we're going to kill them. We're going to shoot them.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was rumors that like we're in an age. I think it's shifting slightly, but we're in a moment where people want to kill protesters, and that's always kind of been the case. In North Dakota, they tried to legalize running protesters over,
or not make it punishable by running over protesters,
which is the same thing as, like,
I know,
handing out an open permit.
I know, right? Basically.
Yeah. And so I thought we were walking into, like, incredible amount of physical pain, and also it wouldn't just be me.
Right.
I was like, also one of the things about actions, that the way that fear operates, fear is contagious. And once fear starts running at an action, it's impossible to stop it. Like, you can only calm and control yourself, and then you're one calm person,
right?
And a bunch of hundreds of scared, pissed off, frightened people who are surrounded by other scared, angry, violent people, and it ended up being almost like a ceremony.
Yeah.
Like we heard Sundance songs going over here, and then Nipsey Hussle, Donald Trump, and it was just like this weird combination of like, and then like people would get maced, and then other people would come around and like smoke them, like smudge them off, and Azalea with sage, and so it was intense. Like you could smell the pepper balls in the air, and also sweetgrass and cedar.
Yeah, it was quite strange. From my perspective, the way I watched it go down, it got to a position where I had to report like I was in Standing Rock again. I had to like go. I went live. I didn't intend to, but it was one of those things where it needed to be live. I couldn't just record and do it for audio. I had to do it through the social media account. And it got like, holy crap, it was like Standing Rock numbers as far as like how many people watched it. That just goes to show Keeley Radio and Lakota Times, Indigenous Rising Media, they're not flooded with, non-natives wondering about natives. They're actually like, especially Keeley Radio and Lakota Times, those are our relatives. That means that those videos got viewed more by our own relatives than anybody else. I mean, that just goes to show like how there is a wave, and you got to find out where you're at on this wave, and it's happening now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you were to do like somebody could probably do a very interesting doctoral thesis on the comment section of Keeley Radio.
Oh yeah,
you guys there's some very interesting souls out there, let's say the least. But that's a beautiful point, is that when we're doing actions, sometimes we get lucky and it's Indian country tuning in,
right? And it really matters. Like me being there, I mean, I wasn't there because I woke up one morning and be like, I'm gonna go to this action. I need to be there for the radio. No, I got invited.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. And if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, I definitely, the first 5 times somebody asked me if I was going, I said no. And then it was like, I mean, if five different, are you going to be there? 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 And it's like, maybe I should be there. And like sometimes it comes down to like, I look at medics, and specifically movement medics. Like they don't care if it's a trap.
Yeah.
Like they don't care if they're going into a bloodbath. Like 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 they don't care about like the strategy or the tactics.
Right.
Their whole thing is, I'm going to show up, and if people are hurt, I'm going to help them. And I think that's a beautiful way. And it's almost like, almost like a warrior creed. Like if you're asked to be there in the best way that you can.
Right.
And then it kind of becomes okay. Like, I'm kind of a person that, don't really believe that there's some detailed plan out there for all of us. But on an action, I kind of have to come to the realization that whatever happens, it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
And once you adopt that attitude that whatever happens is supposed to be that way, it can liberate you to be more present and sometimes useful.
You emerge one of the villagers.
Yeah.
I'm on this kick right now, like how, the word was empowerment.
Yeah.
The word was empowerment. And then I heard the word liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I for some reason liberation to me doesn't sound, it sounds almost like we're taking back something. But who took it from us if we're taking it back? It's almost like I don't want to give credit to anybody who took anything. But now I'm hearing this word emergence, and it relates to us as Lakota people, the word emergence. And then I was like, you emerged. It just feels better. It sounds better. You know, it's my new word, emerged.
It feels a little bit like being born.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
You guys are quite an inspiration out there, like you and like so many people that are in your position, because that role never existed before Standing Rock. There wasn't, I mean, I'm sure there probably was amongst people, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now.
Yeah, like
That role that you guys are in, yeah.
I remember in 2004, I volunteered with an organization, and they had me build a slideshow of indigenous nonviolent direct action of the past 20 years. And it was like, as soon as you got to 1990, it was like Oka crisis on Mohawk territory. And then it was like Red Power 70s and guns.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yeah, and that like, but like I've probably seen more direct action and coming out of Indian country in the past 4 years than the previous 15.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's like there's a whole generation of young people that are woke up. Oh, God, I hate using.
You shouldn't have said that.
I know. Awaken.
Have
emerged in this time, in this place, according to the laws of creation. Excuse me. Family show.
Hey, man, I like that. That's part of inspiring people, is being a little bit animated.
Yeah.
It has to be there. Otherwise, you're looking at somebody who's like, we need to get up.
Yeah.
We need to rise. Yeah, you ain't going to follow that person. I don't. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I think, so like, just like from my perspective on the like communications end of things, whenever I was at Standing Rock, I got there, and then all this action started happening. I stayed there for a solid month in the beginning. But then it got to a point where, like, okay, this is still happening, but stuff's still happening back home, and I got to go back.
Yeah.
And I ended up going back, but I noticed that there were some people that really picked up that communications role and just got rolling big, and I was really impressed. I supported all of them. The thing is that it was like outside of that position, they didn't really know how to communicate after that as well too. And I was really sorry to see that. There were some people out there that they needed action. They needed something to report. But they were like, I have this great big platform, this pedestal of information outlet, but I don't know how to report anything other than action.
Yeah. And yeah, I definitely saw that. And from somebody who was coming from a slightly different perspective, one of the things that was frustrating is that you saw people like holding up the streamers and the live feeders has like heroes and warriors.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, that isn't the guy shutting shit down. That's the guy recording the other, like those women over there who wouldn't shut that down. Like that person is just reporting, and sometimes not even accurately.
Most times.
Like that's one of the also. I got really frustrated with some of the folks. Like, they were great when they were reporting the news. Has it happened live? And then whenever it came to analysis, it was like the lack of training and experience really showed.
Yeah.
And it's like the hyperbolic language, the unverified reports, the sometimes creating or repeating rumors, the manufacturing of unintentional misinformation.
Yeah.
It was exhausting trying to create accurate information. And eventually for myself, I gave up that role because
it's extremely daunting.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And then it's like, all right, are we going to report? Are we going to try to stamp out what is the official story and then propagate that against the noise? Or are we just going to focus on stopping this goddamn pipeline?
It was so frustrating to watch, for sure. Whenever, I just remember, like, watching this from the news entities, and then like, hey, that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, or why does your opinion matter in all this? Like, I thought that all the way through that stuff. Not to say that I'm the best one, or I've learned anything. Oh, I've definitely learned things from Standing Rock. Dallas Goldtooth sent some to me real nice. He said, I don't even know if he meant to say it to me exactly, but he said something nice. He said, people like you that already understood what his role was in the community got up to Standing Rock and didn't lose that. But people that were emerged in Standing Rock, they had a different, it's like becoming something, right? You're either nourished or you're like just forced into something, and those people in Standing Rock were like forced into something, and they just had to do the best they could. And then, the sad thing is whenever something's like forced into something real quick, I mean, their ability to stand after that, all the dust settles, is too bad. It's just one of those things that they don't teach you. Like, how do you survive after this? You don't, or you have a hard time surviving.
Yeah, and then there's the thing where you kind of become camp famous, where it's like, then people will be like, I met you at Standing Rock. And it's
I
like,
know.
Yeah, so did several of 1,000 people. And then other times it's like, no. It's like, hey, I remember that one moment. Yeah, I remember that one moment. You were there. I was there. It was special. And I remember it too. And that was a hell of a day. And then sometimes, sometimes we build relationships and friendships and organizing based off of those moments. And I still hold grudges, though. I still hold grudges where I'm like, I remember with the exact moment you acted like a coward.
That's the Lakota end of you right there.
Right. And the thing about it is like, the thing is like, hey man, I've made 1,000 mistakes since Standing Rock and hundreds before, but I still hold a grudge of that one person for that one time you saw them act really foolish or weak.
That's really hard to describe. And I know there's people out there and like, oh, that wasn't me. Yeah, it was you.
Yeah, sometimes. And I mean, looking back, I had an entire, I still have a very pragmatic attitude about a lot of things. And at the time, I didn't come up there to scream in front of the cops. I have no interest of saying the police and then having a fight with the cops. That's not what I came up to Standing Rock for.
Yeah.
I also didn't show up and most of the Oglala didn't show up to do ceremonies. I mean, you got to remember, Standing Rock happened after the last of the Sundances.
Right.
So the Oglala's been sweat lodging, sun dancing, going up on the hill, Humblecha, the entire summer.
Yeah.
And so you get to Standing Rock and I'm kind of all prayed out about you, but there's a pipeline to stop. So
right.
How about instead of standing around and doing another ceremony, we just go stop the pipeline?
Yeah. Looking back now, Mark, is there anything you would have done in an action? Like, if there was a way to go back and just tell yourself, all right, Mark, on this day, just walk past him. Let them shoot you. Just let them walk.
I'm not sure if you saw when I got arrested. I already did that.
Well, I'm just saying. Could
Would
you
I
have
done that
organized
again?
Better, is what I'm saying.
Of course, yes. Hands down. Every single action could have been organized better and for a sharper purpose. Yeah. And the thing about it though is you can't go back in time. And even the version of what I call success is did we shut them down today? Yes, great. Did anybody get injured or arrested? No, great. That actually wasn't the victories we got at Standing Rock. What happened was when the day of the dog attacks changed things. The treaty, the action out on the land where people were attacked, where the treaty camp was raided, the night on the bridge, on Backwater Bridge, with the water cannons. All of these moments of intense violence are in essence what changed the movement and galvanized it.
Why do you say that?
Violence gets things done. This is the United States government believes that. Every state believes that. Our ancestors were warriors. And so when I say violence gets things. Look what happened in Minneapolis. A decent part of the city was burned to the ground, and so was the police precinct that where the officers were operating out of over on Lake Street. They arrested every one of those folks, and are of the 4 police officers that were there, and they're facing charges. They voted to defund their police. It's fundamentally changed the history of that city.
Right.
And if you look at, Breonna Taylor was murdered, and her city didn't burn, and her killers are still at large. So when I say violence changes things, it does. And I'm not advocating to say like, oh, we need to go and like shoot up people, but and also 2016 isn't 2020.
When I hear you say that, I think of Martin Luther King's quote that we have to organize. I forget how the quote goes, but it's basically saying that we have to organize as people that want to achieve peace have to organize as effectively as those that want war.
And they killed him.
Exactly. That's the thing. But that's an understanding like I hear from different people that there is a level of understanding where peace is at, that it can be effectively implemented versus what you're talking about, violence.
Again,
I can't see it. I'm not saying that I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying is that there's that angle.
So like one of the things about it is whenever we're saying violence, non-violence, violence is already an inherent part of the system. Violence will happen to you. Violence is already happening. And even following the reasoning and the logic behind Martin Luther King, his whole point was to use civil disobedience and direct action to escalate the crisis to the breaking point. And if you look at it, he believed in violence. He believed in escalating things. He also believed in escalating but to violence.
Right.
And he did this. Now, if you look at the history of Bloody Sunday, they created the situations that they maneuvered in such a way that the inevitable brutality of the police would be unleashed upon the young people of Selma.
Yeah.
And
did you ever go to that bridge?
I think I did when I was 16.
I always wanted to go to that bridge.
You should check it. Yeah, I think we did go down there when I was 16.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is like getting into that position where you need to understand how things went. When that whole thing, the way I understand it was just like the way July 3rd happened. That could have, like in my head, nobody was really hurt. And the thing is that
some people were hurt, but the injuries were minor.
All right, yeah, the injuries were minor. The thing is that from my perspective, it was people emerged into their roles, into that thing perfectly. People said, I mean, this is
beautiful.
It was
truly beautiful.
So because people said, and I witnessed people say, well, I'm going to do this. And they did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how many people I heard say, I'm going to die for that pipeline. I'm going to die for that pipeline.
Yeah.
But nobody died.
That's not true. 2 people died during the construction and 4 water protectors died. 2 water protectors died on the way there. Another medic, B.A., Hawaiian brother.
Oh, okay.
Died. So there were deaths.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and there's another fool who... it's always bad to speak ill of the dead, but he fell into the water and drowned.
No way, really?
Yeah, and so there are people who did die. And I mean, DAPL killed 2 of their own people accidentally.
Really? I did not know that.
But you're right. Well, so check this out. Have you ever read an online paper called The Intercept?
No.
You should. They had leaked documents from Tiger Swan.
Really?
Yeah, which is a former Delta operator, is the head of Tiger Swan. And the analysis that they created was if the security forces accidentally or purposely killed one of the water protectors, it would destroy the pipe. It would destroy the project. And their whole idea was they wanted to brutalize. They wanted the police to brutalize the people to the degree that it would take the spirit out and de-escalate the situation that way. That didn't happen. They had a failed analysis and understanding of Lakota people.
Yeah.
What I would probably say the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama, what he ended up doing that de-escalated the situation was temporarily removing the easement from the Army Corps of Engineers underneath the river.
I wonder if he was like trying to go through. Yeah, he was trying to go through his old presidential term. I'm never going to use a veto, and it's like the one time he ever had to use it.
It wasn't a veto. It was actually
wasn't it that?
No, there was not an act of Congress that passed both houses. That passed the Senate and the House that went before the president that he had to veto. It was an executive decision, and a very quiet one at that, that instructed the Army Corps of Engineers to deny the easement underneath Lake Oahe, which is a federally controlled waterway under the Missouri River.
So what was his whole veto deal then? Because he did have to use it. I don't recall what part of it was. I just know that he used it.
Hey, man, you brought it up.
Hey, all right. Well, I thought that was it. Maybe my history's skewed. It always is time to time.
No, all right. So check this out. If you ever want to talk to a crazy person, there's Bobby Kennedy Jr., brilliant crazy person with a great crazy person voice. But one of the things that he told me was they could have made that executive decision Trump proof. Meaning it could not have been altered by the next executive.
Oh, yeah.
They chose President, and when I mean they, I mean Barack Hussein Obama and his administration made that choice. But also, furthermore, they also made the choice to authorize it in the first place.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody wants to praise Obama, I remember, you could tattoo this across me hat, we're going to let it play out for a couple more weeks.
You know, whenever I hear people talk about, like, the next president, whenever I hear indigenous peoples talk about the next president and like they're so worried about him, and I always think, what has changed?
Yeah.
What has changed for like, it's almost like their actions, and I understand the world's going nuts.
Yeah. I
understand that. But what I'm saying is that whenever President Bush was elected, I remember people saying, oh, this is bad for Indian country. Turned out President Bush did actually a lot of things for Native peoples. More than Obama. I don't even know if that's true yet, but I just know that.
Does it feel true?
No, one of the things is that, like, there was just things that were done. Like, even like Donald Trump, for example, he like certified several tribes. Like, he opened like the gate so that tribes could become tribes.
And he tried to steal Mashpee land.
Well, I'm not trying to counter anything here with you, Mark. I'm just
I'm saying it's actually an interesting thing. Is like I thought it would be like I thought the Bureau of Indian Education would the budget would have been slashed to nothing. I thought the BIA would have been slashed to nothing. I thought we would have been thrown out the Department of Interior, or all of our tribes were like our very status as tribes would be revoked.
Right.
None of that happened. He decided to have a feud over his non-existent casino.
Right.
And so, like, it's almost like we're skating by because he's not paying attention.
It's probably it. I mean, he's got bigger things happening in his life than, a bunch of Indians. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but also it would be great to see that, because I think there's a lot of people that don't really understand like what happens on the White House. I know some people really think that it reflects what happens on reservations or whatever, or our specific lands. But you notice how like we've been used to the crumbs of the pie for so long that we have no idea what it's actually like to have an influx of people paying attention to indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. We do not know what that's like. This is kind of like that. People are starting to pay attention because of the Redskins, the Oklahoma deal, DAPL, and now we have Keystone happening. So whenever I heard Keystone got cut, Dakota Access Pipeline got cut, and they're like, you have to have all your oil drained out by August 3rd or something like that, August 9th. I don't remember what day it is. But when they said that, I was like, okay, how long? Because in our history with DAPL, it was like, yeah, because I remember people, whenever that first injunction came and cut off Dakota Access Pipeline, everybody started, imagery was coming up where we cut off the snake's head, and we're like, we ended this, and everybody's praising that, thinking we ended this.
What?
You know what I'm talking about?
I just want to... Everybody?
Okay. A lot of people, Mark. I know you were probably sitting there thinking like, wait for it.
Yeah, no, I was. I was definitely putting like...
You had your hands out.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
What exactly are you celebrating?
Yeah. See, that's your role, though.
Yeah, right.
I was in the cup. We won.
We did it. Yeah, we're awesome, man. High five.
Do you remember the camp, the way they behaved?
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
fireworks.
We did it.
Fireworks. Literal fireworks several times.
Yeah.
After several victories. I remember, could we just hold off on the literal fireworks?
And who brought fireworks?
Yeah, and it's the goddamn middle of winter.
Yeah. I remember that, though.
Someone had to plan to bring celebration fireworks.
Yeah. Like, this is the part, though. Like, creating more barriers. The pipeline stopped right now. Didn't stop the Keystone Pipeline.
No pipeline stopped right now. They're still building the Keystone.
No, I know.
Like, so the man camps near Phillip, outside of Cheyenne River, the construction of those camps, the construction of the pipeline is still ongoing.
Yeah.
It looks like they moved a lot of their resources outside of Nebraska. But they're basically building these small towns, not exactly even small towns. They're building towns to construct the KXL pipeline along the route now. The oil is still flowing through the Dakota Access Pipeline, and they've already created what they call shipping agreements for August. Meaning they never had any intention of shutting the pipeline down, and they took on new contracts to keep operating the pipeline despite the judge's orders.
You know, your dad said something to me that's really interesting, and I never even thought of this. He said, North Dakota gets money, gets tax dollars for having oil shipped through their pipeline. Mm-hmm. South Dakota doesn't.
Yeah.
South Dakota does not receive a cent from the Keystone or the Dakota Access Pipeline that flow through South Dakota.
Yeah, it's endangering our water with no benefit to us.
Yeah, the only people that are getting money is the people that sideline that deal through. Mm-hmm. Why is that not like? If I was I don't even know how white people act or behave or whatever, but what I'm just saying is like, if I was a white person and I was like, wait a minute, we're not getting anything for this?
Yeah.
Well, let's side with the Indians. That's what I would do. I mean, it's just like...
And like, one of the things with...
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, with DAPL, anybody who's using water from the Missouri River south of the Bakken oil fields should be concerned about the oil pipelines crossing it. Anybody who's like, from interior to the Missouri River should be concerned because they're operating off of the Minnewachuny pipeline. Should be against...